Toy Story is a beloved Pixar film, but even fans may not have noticed these sneaky details. And from a film that came out back in November 22nd, 1995, this film is 27 years old, that you're bound to have missed a few things. And whether you call yourself a Pixar theory conspiracyist, if that even is a word, most of you might not have seen this film in many, many years. And some of the things you might have missed or not known can kind of be frightening. But without further ado, grab some popcorn and let's get into the video. Hey guys, my name is The Hero, and today you clicked on this video to find all the things that you might have missed in Toy Story. And let me go ahead and tell you, you're not going to be disappointed by this one. Or will you? Andy's room is full of real-life board games, and some of his toys feature authentic logos. And as we know from films that released after Toy Story, you are bound to find Toy Story Easter eggs in many of Pixar's latest films. But sometimes it always comes down to the little things. In some of the background scenes involving Andy, you can actually catch that Andy spelled some words wrong on his DIY toy set. When Andy plays with his toys at the beginning of the movie, he uses self-decorated pieces of cardboard as buildings. Although some of his labels, including Saloon and Wanted, are spelled correctly, others like Bazillion, School, and General are a little off the mark, some would say. And honestly, this is just the animators adding a little bit of real life scenario into the movie. And one thing we know for sure is that Pixar and Disney are super detailed in their animations, even back in 1995. A lot of the animation that went into making the toys make them actually look like they're made from the same material as their real life counterparts. For example, Mr. Potato Head's plastic body is rough and textured. Woody's clothes are soft and worn in, and Slinky Dog's spring is shiny metallic, almost as if just looking at the spring itself, you can definitely hear that little slinky sound. And call it what you will, but adding little bit of details of real life board games and companies in the background of shots has to connect with the crowd as well. Andy's room has plenty of easily recognizable toys and games. Real life board games including Operation, Mousetrap, Candyland, Twister, and Ants in the Pants can be seen on his shelves and stacked under his bed. And if we know anything about Pixar movies, we always need to pay attention to details in the background, because some of the books in Andy's room have hidden meanings. In many animated films, background details like book spines aren't fully fleshed out, but Andy's bookshelf is full of legible titles. When Woody walks by the shelf, viewers get a close-up look at made-up books like Feet First, Pale Cowboy from Texas, and Help the Planet, alongside a copy of Grimm's Fairy Tales, a real book that has inspired many Disney stories. Additionally, some of the books are references to Pixar animated shorts, The Adventures of Andre and Wally B, Red's Dream, Tin Toy, and Knick Knack. And another Smurl Smurl Twist and Twirl honors Pixar animator Elliot Smurl. And honestly, that's one of the coolest things that I love about Pixar animation, is that you can watch these films multiple times and still miss everything. Because the amount of detail that goes into these films is something that you wouldn't even think twice of when you're focusing on the story, especially if you're a kid. And the details don't just stop in the background, but also in the foreground, as the toys in Toy Story actually have accurate reflections and shadows throughout the movie. The incredibly detailed animation style in Toy Story is noticeable from the very beginning of the film. When the toys gather in Andy's room before the birthday party, the reflections and shadows are accurately shown on the wooden bedroom floor, as well as some toys feature real-life brand names and logos. The toys and games shown throughout the movie have plenty of realistic details, including real brand names and logos that are recognizable to almost every human possible. For example, a truck in Andy's room features a Little Tikes logo on its side, and the Tinker toy container has the authentic Playskool logo and instructions on it. Just another way of Pixar adding detail that isn't necessarily needed, but is a perfect way to connect to the audiences that watch it. Now, what is a Disney or Pixar movie without some pop culture references in it, right? Well, there's a particular scene in Toy Story that you might have caught a reference and some dad jokes along the way. Now, this reference a normal kid would never pick up, but adults could maybe know if you are very cultured, as some would say. At one point in the film, Mr. Potato Head rearranges parts of his face before turning to Ham and saying he's Picasso. Pablo Picasso, if most of you don't know, created many paintings in a disoriented art style, and when Ham doesn't get the reference, Mr. Potato Head fittingly calls him, "You uncultured swine!" Now, I think we can all agree that Mr. Potato Head is probably the most ruthless character in this entire film. And it doesn't just stop with Ham. Slinky Dog tends to side with Woody during the toy meetings throughout most of the film, so when he agrees with something that the cowboy says before the birthday party, Mr. Potato takes off his lips and moves them toward his rear to indicate that Slinky is kissing up on Woody. And they say animation is just for kids. But going back to the details that Pixar puts in their films, it doesn't just stop with shadows and all these other things involved in the background, but also includes things that happen in the foreground multiple times throughout the film. When the toy soldiers hide in a large planter during the birthday party, viewers can see that a care tag from the garden store is sticking out of the dirt. Forest Fantasy doesn't appear to be a real nursery, but the tag features clear and realistic instructions for caring for the plant. Another needless detail that Pixar didn't have to worry about, but added just because they wanted to. Now, one detail that we might all have missed is that Pixar actually wasn't acquired by Disney until 2006, but Toy Story was distributed by Walt Disney Pictures. So it's not all that surprising that they snuck in a reference to Mickey Mouse in the form of a classic 1990s wristwatch wall clock during the scene when Buzz is introduced. And if you are one of those Pixar pros that is all caught up on the Pixar theory, the license plate on the family car reads A113. And as some of us might know, this code appears in nearly every other Pixar movie and references a classroom at the California Institute of the Arts where many of the studio's animators studied and honed their craft. A113 can be seen on a classroom door in Monsters University, on a diver's camera in Finding Nemo, and as a secret directive code in WALL-E, to name a few. But as most of us probably have pointed out, there has to be a deeper meaning to A113, right? If only there was a movie that would come out describing all of that. Possible future idea? Now, we all might be familiar with the company Dynaco, right? That appears heavily in the Cars franchise and one of the companies that Lightning McQueen wants to race for. But it actually appeared first in Toy Story when Andy's mom stops to get gas on the way to Pizza Planet, when she pulls into an actual Dynaco gas station. The gas station's name and logo probably look familiar to Disney fans, but one little fun fact you might not know is that Dynaco actually appears in WALL-E as well. Now, an Easter egg that appears to show up in almost every Pixar film ever as well is that Pizza Planet truck itself. But take a deeper look at the Pizza Planet truck and there's some hidden details that you might not know about. The Pizza Planet delivery truck that Woody and Buzz catch a ride in has some unique details on the back. The trunk says "Yo" in large letters, seemingly to signify that it's a beat-up Toyota, and the license plate reads Res 1536, which is evidently a reference to the resolution the film was rendered in. Rather than a smiley face sticker, there's a neutral face on the back window, and on the other side of the rear windshield, there's a sticker for a radio station called Krat FM, which is likely a homage to the art director Tia Crater. In the place where a commercial car would usually have a sticker asking for feedback on their driving, this truck instead has a sticker that reads, "How's my driving? Ha 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 ha." Which makes sense because this pizza truck driver drives very insane throughout the film. Now, some would argue that Sid is the true villain of this story, right? He creates these DIY Frankenstein creepy looking toys, as well as Sid's house having an iconic rug that looks similar to the rug that was featured in The Shining, which just adds a little bit more darkness to Sid's house. But what if I told you that Sid wasn't the actual villain for this story? In the original script, Woody is actually the protagonist of the film. And you can see that in the script that got released, as he is the one that hates on Buzz and tries to get all the toys to go against him, and wants pretty much Andy all to himself. But in the original script, he wasn't actually going to be just a cowboy doll, but an actual ventriloquist dummy who looks super freaking creepy. And part of the reason for changing him to a cowboy was to make it more authentic for kids that would see this movie with their parents. But at the end of the day, I'm kind of glad they didn't go with that, because I don't think me as a kid would love Woody that much, and he would probably fit right in with all the creepy little toys that he saved later in the film. But let's go ahead and veer back towards Sid's room, because we're all about that creepiness right now, right? Well, Sid's treatment of the toys is pretty dark, as we know. His techniques include blowing them up, performing surgery on them, and even torturing them as he does to Woody. When Woody is trapped under a crate in the scary kid's room, there's a book behind him titled Improvised Interrogation Handbook from the Department of the Army Technical Manual. Although the book doesn't excuse his messed up behavior, it does explain how Sid honed his craft. Now, with Toy Story being one of the most successful Pixar films of all time and leading to multiple movies coming out later that just got better and better, honestly, with some still saying that the OG is the best, there's a lot of fun facts that you might not know about. Pixar actually wanted to make Sid's terrifying toys real. One of the most memorable things about the film was Sid's terrible homemade toys, right? Unbelievably, Pixar originally wanted to sell them in real life alongside Buzz and Woody, including that horrifying baby 3-head spider. Apparently that didn't go according to plan and the idea was scrapped, but let's be honest, aren't we all wondering why? Tom Hanks could actually relate to Andy. Tom Hanks said one of the reasons he liked the film was because when he was a kid, he used to wonder if his toys came to life when he left the room. He said yes immediately when he was asked to voice cowboy toy Woody, partly because of this experience. And his counterpart buddy Tim Allen actually wasn't the first choice for Buzz Lightyear. Billy Crystal, who is the voice of Mike Wazowski in Monsters, Inc., was originally offered the part of Buzz Lightyear, but turned it down. Later he said it was a huge mistake, and that's why he said yes straight away when they asked him to voice Mike in Monsters, Inc. It is kind of hard to imagine anyone else voicing Mike Wazowski or Buzz Lightyear, but it does make you think, what if things turned around and Billy Crystal was Buzz and Tim Allen Mike? Would the roles actually worked reversed? So with the innovations that Pixar performed with all these background shadows and details, you may wonder why that most of the humans in this film have short hair. Well, the first Toy Story film was made in the very early days of computer animation, and animators hadn't figured everything out yet. Hair was particularly tricky to animate, and that's why all the humans have short or simple hair in the film, because it was easier to render. Later on, when hair technology advanced, the styles changed a bit more. For example, Sully's hair in Monsters, Inc., where each little fiber of hair was animated to perform in a certain way. And what if I told you that Woody and Buzz are actually based on real toys? According to John Lasseter, the film's director, Woody and Buzz are loosely based on toys from his own childhood. A Casper doll with a pull string like Woody, and then later a G.I. Joe doll, which was very popular and was the model for Buzz Lightyear. And with movies getting so much longer every single year, it actually makes sense that the first Toy Story movie is the shortest out of everyone. At just 81 minutes long, Toy Story is not only the shortest Toy Story movie, it's also the shortest Pixar film. As an early Pixar movie, the animators were still figuring out how to do everything, and we're still testing the technology out. But that didn't stop the animators from making a buttload of money that year. Toy Story was released in 1995, making several $100 million that year. At the time it was released, it was also the third highest grossing animated film ever, behind The Lion King and Aladdin. It's also one of the highest grossing films of all time, right in the top 100, with one of its protagonist characters, Andy, being named after a real person. Andy is supposedly named after Andreas Andy Van Dam, a professor of computer sciences who taught many of the animators on the film. He pioneered a lot of early animation techniques, so the creators of Toy Story have a lot to thank him for. But with all the creators learning all these different techniques, it took a while to make the film, I'm sure. But it only took one day to write You've Got a Friend in Me. The famous song, which is heard again in later films, only took songwriter Randy Newman a day to write. The song was nominated for multiple awards, though it lost out to Pocahontas. The most memorable version of the song is when Wheezy the Penguin covers it at the end of the second film, accompanied by backup singer Barbies. And one thing that some of you might not know is that Toy Story was Pixar's first feature film. Because yes, Pixar was still growing before the time of Toy Story and had originally only made animated shorts until Toy Story's success. In fact, it's the first full-length CGI film ever. After Toy Story did well, Pixar went on to do other classic films like A Bug's Life, WALL-E, and Finding Nemo, but it's probably because Toy Story was so successful that Pixar is still thriving today. And not only was Toy Story just a financial success, it is classified as perfect according to Rotten Tomatoes. Rotten Tomatoes, the website which keeps track of film reviews and their average scores, gives Toy Story a 100% fresh rating, meaning that almost all of its reviews were positive. Films very rarely got a 100% rating, and some other famous examples include Black Panther, Paddington 2, and of course, Toy Story 2. And with its success, of course, there means that Toy Story would have branches off to toys, video games, as well as other appearances and animated shorts of the franchise. But one thing you might not know is that Tom Hanks doesn't always voice Woody. Tom had so many voice roles as Woody that his brother Jim actually sometimes voices the character for other projects. So if you think you're hearing Tom, it actually may be his brother Jim Hanks. Luckily, they sound pretty much identical. Now, one iconic theory from this film is that you never see Andy's father, and many speculate that maybe he passed away before the events of Toy Story. But actually, there is a reasonable answer for why he doesn't appear in the film. Andy's dad isn't there because it was too expensive to animate another human being. They decided he wasn't needed for the story and left him out to save money. So with all the speculations about Andy's parents being divorced, or that Andy's father is literally dead, which actually wouldn't be surprising for a Disney film, it was just a simple way to save money. And this also left room for the animated animators to play around with the animation. Pixar animators are famous for the amount of fun they get to have when making their films, and this one was no exception. In order to figure out how the stiff plastic toy soldiers would move, the animators strapped boards to their feet and wandered around the office playing soldiers. It's certainly not your typical day at work, but one that I definitely would love to be a part of. Now, remember when I said that Pixar was known for just short animated films before Toy Story, right? But what if I told you that Toy Story is actually directly based off a short story they made? The film is actually based on a 1988 short by Pixar called Tin Toy. It's only 5 minutes long and is about a toy named Tinny and a baby named Billy. So it doesn't bear much resemblance to the finished Toy Story, but it was the start of an idea that would eventually become the famous franchise. The film did well though, and it won the Oscar for Best Animated Short Film that year. And that famous tin toy that appears in this short was actually going to be the lead protagonist for Toy Story. And this was before Buzz even was thought of. The story was actually going to follow Tinny and Woody being that antagonist that was actually very, very mean. But later the animators decided that Tinny wouldn't be a significant enough character and later scrapped him and made Woody the lead protagonist and created Buzz Lightyear. But Tinny wasn't the only toy that got scrapped and thrown in the garbage. There was one actual real life famous toy that was supposed to appear in the first movie. Barbie was originally a character in the first film. With Barbie being one of the most famous parts of Toy Story 2, there was a plan to have her as one of the main heroes in the first film. She was going to be Woody's love interest, but was ultimately cut out and little Bo Peep was created. Luckily, she appears later because she's actually one of the best characters according to audiences. But one little final piece that you might have missed or not known about is that Toy Story was almost a musical. Disney and Pixar are both known for musicals, and there was an early plan to make Toy Story a musical too. However, the film's plot just didn't really work as a musical, and eventually it was scrapped. Now, if you've made it to this point in this video, you probably are wondering what else is included in this Toy Story movie that I might have missed. Well, there's a couple Easter eggs that you might not have picked up on as a kid that you could definitely spot nowadays. So if we go back into Sid's room, Sid is a troubled kid known for destroying toys, often playing surgeon, and each of Sid's creations are clever, but at least one of them utilizes a play on words. Attached to a toy fishing rod are two legs of a doll. Known as legs, this toy most likely went over the heads of its viewers as being a hooker. Two long bare legs attached to a literal hook and rod. But this wasn't the only Easter egg that you could have missed, because if you're a longtime Tim Allen fan, only Tool Time fans may have noticed this one. Sid's room is filled with different tools he uses to perform his surgeries on his toys, and the brand name of the tools is no coincidence. Binford Tools is seen on Sid's toolbox, and is the same company that sponsors Tool Time on Home Improvement, which starred Buzz Lightyear's portrayer, Tim Allen. But Tim Allen didn't just get a reference in the movie, another actor did, and that actor was the person who voiced Mr. Potato Head. The late comedian Don Rickles was actually known for often using the term hockey puck as an insult. Well, near the beginning of the movie, when Andy leaves his room and his toys come to life, we're introduced one by one to all the film's side characters. It's during this introduction that we meet Mr. Potato Head, who rearranges his part to look like Picasso, then turns around and says,
"What are you looking at, you hockey puck?"
Ooh, now that was a lot that you had to take in. But now you should know a lot of Easter eggs and things that you might not know about or might have missed in Toy Story. If you enjoyed the video, make sure you guys leave a like as well as hit the subscribe button and the bell icon so you guys get notified when I do my uploads. Whether it's been almost 30 years since you've seen this film or just wasn't old enough to actually understand any of the concepts, Toy Story will be known forever as one of the greatest Pixar films to ever exist, and one that literally brought Pixar into the limelight that has never went dim. But as we did many years, there might have been some things that we still might not know about or missed in the Toy Story movie. Did you guys catch anything else that wasn't in this video? If you did, leave a comment and let us know what you found. Thank you guys so much for watching this video, and as I always say, stay nerdy, stay geeky, and I will see you guys at the movies. Bye-bye!